So in this video, I want to use the factoring by the AC method, and I want to talk specifically about the signs, because as I've said before in my previous video, the signs are probably the trickiest and most difficult part for students to deal with in this method. And they're probably the most difficult, tricky part to deal with in factoring in general. So I want to do 3 different examples, and I want to show you what you need to know in order to get your signs correctly. So we're going to start with this one. And you're always going to start off this method by multiplying the first and the last digits together. So I'm going to do 9 times -4, like so. And that is going to give us -36. And you want to be really, really careful about that sign there. They're the most important part here right now. Okay, so I'm going to do my t-chart. And I'm going to write my middle term over here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, just like in the previous video, I'm going to get a list of my factors. So for 36, we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and then 6 and 6. Once you've got your factors listed out, or at least one pair of factors listed out, that's when you want to start thinking about your signs. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to look at the signs of the two numbers up here. I don't really care about how large these guys are compared to each other, the numbers at all. All I'm really focused on is here is the signs. Okay? This number, the left-hand side, is going to tell you if they're the same sign or if one of them is negative. Okay? If it's positive, then both these guys are going to have the same sign. They're either going to be both positive or they're both going to be negative. If it's negative, then one of them is going to be negative and the other one is going to be positive. Okay? On the right-hand side, this sign is going to tell you the sign of the larger factor. Okay? So I usually actually look at the right-hand side first. Right? So here, I have a negative sign on my 9. That means that my larger factor is going to be negative, which means that all of these guys, because these are my larger factor, are going to be negative. Now, looking at my left-hand side, this is negative. That means that only one of my factors is going to be negative, which means that each of these guys is going to be positive. And what we're looking for here is that we're looking for the two factors that are going to give us -9. So again, you've got to be really, really careful about your signs. Make sure that you do this correctly. So I do 1 minus 36, that gives me -35. 2 minus 18, which gives me -16. 3 minus 12, which gives me -9. That's what I want. So that's going to be the pair of factors that I use. So continuing the process, I'm going to take my middle term here. I'm going to split it up into those two factors. So it's going to give me 9x squared plus 3x minus 12x minus 4. Remember, these two guys have to have the same variable as the middle term. All right? Next, we're going to factor this by grouping. So the way that I like to do it is I like to put a line under here, line under here. I think about what my GCF is here. It's going to be 3x. I think about what my GCF is here, it's going to be 4. And because I have a negative sign on my first term here, that means that this GCF has to be negative. Okay, so we're going to be dividing by a negative here. Then I do the factoring. I'm going to factor out that 3x. I'm going to divide both of these guys by 3x to find out what I have left in my parentheses. So 9x squared divided by 3x is 3x. 3x divided by 3x is going to give me 1. Remember, if they cancel each other out, you're going to end up with 1. Here, I have -4. When I do -12 divided by -4, that's going to give me positive 3x. And then when I do -4 divided by -4, that's going to give me positive 1, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Now I'm ready to just write my answer as my last step. And that's the end of that problem. So on these two examples, I specifically set them up so you can appreciate how different these are going to work out because of the signs. Okay? These are going to give me very similar results, but the signs are going to make a radical difference. So in this first one, my product is going to be 24. I do 3 times 8. And that's positive 24. That's really, really important. Okay, I'm going to do my t-chart. My middle number is negative 10. So I'm looking for two factors of 24 that are going to give me negative 10. So I'm going to list out my factors of 24. 1, 24, 2, 12, 3, 8, and 4, and 6. And that's the end of them. Now, like I said before, this is going to tell us the larger sign. This is going to tell us if they're the same or if only one of them is negative. So because this is negative, each of my larger ones needs to be negative. Because this is positive, they have to have the same sign, which means that my smaller ones also need to be negative. Okay? And I'm looking for the pair that's going to give me negative 10. So when I combine these two guys, when I do negative 1 minus 24, that's going to give me negative 25. When I do negative 2 minus 12, that's going to give me negative 14. When I do negative 3 minus 8, that's going to give me negative 11. And when I do negative 4 minus 6, that gives me negative 10. So negative 4 and negative 6 are the pair that I want to choose. So we're going to finish the problem by rewriting our middle term. So I'm going to have minus 4x minus 6x plus 8. So because both of these guys are negative, they're going to be negative here. Then I'm going to factor out my GCF. So my GCF here is x, and that's it. My GCF here is going to be 2, and because that guy's negative, it's going to be a negative 2. Then I'm going to do my factoring. This is going to give me x times 3x minus 4. I'm going to have my negative 2 there. Negative 6x divided by negative 2 is going to be 3x. Positive 8 divided by negative 2 is going to give me negative 4. Okay? Remember, these two guys should match if you're doing it correctly. If you're off by a sign, check and see. That's usually the reason why. Then, we're going to write our answer. Now, in our last example, our numbers are exactly the same as the previous example, only the signs are different. All right? So, when I multiply these two guys together, that's going to give me negative 24. I draw my t-chart. I write down my middle term, which is positive 10. Okay, I start looking at factors of 24, which are going to be 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. Now, in this case, because my 10 is positive, my larger term has to be positive. Okay, which means that the 24, the 12, the 8, and the 6 all have to be positive. Because my 24 here is negative, that means that one of them has to be negative. In this case, because the larger one has to be positive, the smaller one is going to be negative. So in this case, I'm going to get a completely different list of sums because of my signs. This is going to be positive 23. This is going to be positive 10. This is going to be positive 5, and that's going to be positive 2. And because this is positive 10, this is the pair of factors that I want. So it's a completely different pair of factors than what I had before. It's not 4 and 6 this time, it's 2 and 12. So when I go to finish it and solve it, I'm going to have 3x squared minus 2x plus 12x minus 8. I'm going to divide here, divide here. My GCF here is x. My GCF here is 4. That's going to leave me with x times 3x minus 2. This is going to be positive 4, because that's positive, times 3x minus 2. And then my answer is going to be x minus 4 times 3x minus 2. Now, so far I've only worked with really small numbers where I could list out the entire list of numbers. In the next example that I want to do, I'm going to do a problem where the numbers get really big. So I'll see you then.